everyone, how are you? I am Alejandra La Phoenix Ayala, here as promised with our English episode for today, which we will be talking about all these fighters who have made the transition from MMA, kickboxing, karate to boxing, or vice versa. And of course, we put these questions on social media, and I don't know if it's because I put with the question I always put a picture, as you guys know. So for this week I put Erin Toughill. So I don't know if it's because I put a female protagonist, a female fighter, that most of the replies were of women, and there was actually only one infamous, who I'm sure you guys can all guess, who I'll save for last, who is actually male, and everybody else is female. So it was really interesting. Thank you to everybody that participated. Alfonso Hernandez, hello, how are you? Thank you for tuning in. If you could just give me a second and we'll get started. So as I mentioned, we'll start with Erin Toughill just because she is the one that I am aware of and that I put in the question. So it's really interesting to me because I vaguely knew more or less, what she was about. But after having researched her, I admire her so much more. So Erin Toughill currently is 42 years old. She started at Gladiators as Steel, this contest, which is a contest of strength and agility that was in the U.S. She started very young. And then she went on to do MMA and boxing, which she balanced until 2006, when she announced her retirement. But then she came back in 2007 and then won, way to kick ass, in MMA by unanimous decision. So in MMA, her style is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Her first fight was in 1999, which was a draw, and her last fight was in 2011 with a loss. So her MMA record is 10 wins, 3 losses, and 1 tie. As boxing, so I didn't know, but even more credit, she's fought the best in boxing. Her professional record in boxing is 7 wins, 6 losses, and 1 tie. But if you see just the quality of boxers that she's been facing, I mean, she's had legendary fights against Jackie Frazier-Lyde, the daughter of course, Frazier, and then she went on to fight Muhammad Ali's daughter, Laila Ali, for a super middleweight championship, which unfortunately she lost both of them. But wow, those are not easy fights to have and to still be fighting. She just fought in 2019 against former world champion in the 154 pounds, Hannah Rankin. So this woman is truly admirable. She's been everything from, just showing off her strength. She's still very strong at 42 years old, and she says right now she's training, and she is a trainer from what I've seen in her social media, and she continues to box. Her last fight, as I said, was just last year, so maybe if this whole COVID craze hadn't happened, maybe she would have been fighting today in 2020. And then we have Holly Holm. Holly Holm is currently 39 years old. So she started in kickboxing in 2002 to 2003. So she only fought, 2 years, where she won 2 and she lost 1. And then she went on to boxing. Her first fight was in 2002, which she won. And her last fight was in 2013 with a win over actual current super lightweight world champion Mary McGee. So that's really interesting. Her final record was 33 wins, 2 losses, and 3 ties. She won multiple awards, including she is currently in the New Mexico Boxing Hall of Fame after various world title fights and wins. So she ended her boxing career in 2013 and then went on to MMA. Her first fight was in 2011 with a win, and her last fight was just this year. Why didn't I fight in January? She fought January 2020 again with a win. She hasn't said that she's going to retire from MMA even at her age. Her current record is 13 wins and 5 losses. And Robert Cartagena says, even though she transitioned from boxing to MMA, Holly Holm definitely left her mark, with her defining moment being the kick heard around the world on Ronda Rousey in 2015. I remember this fight. I remember it so clearly. I was in Tijuana. I was, boxing, and, they said Holly Holm is going to face Ronda Rousey. And this is when Ronda Rousey was, high ticket sales and everything. And it was incredible. This fight was unpredictable. I think, I wouldn't say nobody, but very few people gave Holly Holm the win. And she just knocked Ronda Rousey out when she was at the top of her game. She did come back. Ronda Rousey did come back, and she did win a couple more. But then shortly after that, she went into wrestling. So I'm sure it affected her. And since then, Holly Holm looks so strong. She looks like she's, ready to continue this. She had her loss against Nunes, but Nunes is, of course, also world championship status. So then we have Amanda Serrano, age 31. So she started boxing. Her first fight was in 2009 with a majority decision win, and her last fight was in, of course, this year, January 2020, with a TKO win. And, well, she's set to fight in an historic fight against Katie Taylor, which obviously has been postponed, has been changed. Currently, supposedly in July, we'll see if it happens. Her current record is 38 wins, 1 loss, and 1 tie. And she's an impressive record of 7 division title holder, world champion. But for some reason, she started getting into this MMA. She wanted to debut, since I believe 2016. She started, saying some things. She started criticizing some fighters who have made the transition, saying she stands up too rigidly. She needs to know how to, grapple, etc., etc. So she made her debut in Combate Americas in 2018, and currently she has 1 win, and her last one was a draw. So I know that she was supposed to fight prior to her last fight in January in boxing. She was set to fight in Puerto Rico, but she saw the chance, and I know she has a contract with DAZN, so I'm pretty sure she said, let's go with it. So she's right now currently doing boxing and MMA. Very impressive. Then we have Ava Knight. She's also age 31. She's been boxing for a really long time. Her first fight was in 2007 with a win, and her last fight was in 2019 with a win. She's a Diamond World Champion. She got this belt in 2012 against Mariana La Barbie Juarez in Mexico, and she has had multiple title bouts and wins. Her record is very impressive. She has 19 wins, 2 losses, 5 draws. Like I said, she's always been fighting the best. And then she went on to MMA Bellator. Actually, her first fight was in 2019. So just last year, she won by TKO. And then she fought again MMA because even though she is signed with Mayweather Promotions, she's been having some difficulty there, getting fights, etc., etc. We all know how that is. So she fought in January. She went back to MMA, and unfortunately, she lost by submission. So she said that she's not ready to give up, either in boxing or in MMA. And even though she's really young, she's 31, she has had a really long career, but she says she still has a lot more where that came from. So we'll see her again in both. Then we went to Heather Hardy. Heather Hardy is 38 years old. She started boxing in 2012 with a win, and her last fight was in 2019 with a loss to Amanda Serrano by unanimous decision. Again, I've been following Heather Hardy more or less. I think she has a very famous picture of her in MMA where she's just bleeding everywhere, and actually she won that fight. She also has a cut above her, below her eyebrow, which continuously gets opened, and so she's used to bleeding a lot. But so that much I knew of her. But when I saw her against Amanda Serrano, as I mentioned, she's unbelievable. She's talented and she's strong. She's fearless. She has boxing IQ. She's a great athlete. And so the second round, Heather Hardy looked like she was not gonna make it. Like she was gonna get knocked out ugly. And she came back and she finished the entire 10 rounds. She actually came back stronger after each round, and my respects to her. So she's still boxing. Her current record is 22 wins with 1 loss, that one by Amanda Serrano. But she's also been in MMA Bellator. So her first bout was in 2017 with a win by TKO, and her last bout was in 2019 with a loss by TKO. Her current MMA record is 2 wins and 2 losses. From what I've seen is that in MMA, it's very unpredictable. It's not, I wouldn't say as easy, but I think like in boxing, you know what you're getting into. In MMA, even though you train for one thing, because there are so many disciplines, like you could lose by TKO, like with a punch, with a kick, you can lose by submission, you can, lose by so many factors that from what I've seen, the MMA records are a lot less, are a lot more, the same parejo, wins to losses. Robert Cartagena says, Ava displayed quite the effective striking game in her Bellator MMA debut win. I agree. When she knocked out, I said, wow, she's incredible. Well, I also think she's incredible just as a person, as an athlete, and as a boxer. But it was really interesting to me when she came back and she lost by submission, which is what I'm saying. Like, it's so unpredictable. So, I don't know. Then we have Jackie Nava. She's aged 40. So she actually started in karate. She was a black belt by age 16 years old. And then her kickboxing career came soon after. She won the North American title in 2001. And she finished with a record of 7 wins and only 1 loss. She was still training boxing and studying her bachelor's. When she was still training kickboxing and studying her bachelor's, somebody whispered in her ear, you have really good assets to transition into boxing. Why don't you give it a try? So that she did. In 2001, she debuted as a professional boxer and she won a unanimous decision. Her last fight was in 2019 with a majority decision. This woman has been fighting 18 years. It's something incredible. She has a pending fight against Mariana Juarez, which we're all very excited to see, which was set for May. Now they're saying in June, so we'll see. Hopefully it does go through. She smells retirement. She had said she wanted to do 2 more fights and then retire. With this COVID that has been taking back, I don't know if she's going to give it a few more years or if she's just going to fight the Mariana Juarez fight and then out with it. In boxing, she was the first ever WBC female champion. Just a few weeks after that, Laila Ali became the second ever female WBC champion. So that was very interesting. And of course, she's been a diamond belt contender with the amazing trilogy against La Guerrera Torres. Her current record is 35 wins, 4 losses, and 4 draws. Cartagena says, James Toney actually competed in UFC against Randy Couture, but I felt like it was so pointless because James lost in the first round and didn't even look like he wanted to win. So yeah, that's really interesting too. When I think they make the transition and they look kind of out of place because for one, we know that the guard is very different. From what I've seen in MMA is a lot more open and a lot lower because you want to, take away the kicks and stuff. And in boxing, it's a lot more up here. Although there are those, who put their face in everything, but they know that they're only going to receive punches. They're not going to be receiving any kicks. I think if you did that MMA, you'd surely lose right away. What else? Ana Hulatan also transitioned from boxing to MMA and competed as a 2-sport athlete. Yeah, I think that's becoming more and more. As I see like these older boxers, for example, Holly Holm, she's already indicted into the Boxing Hall of Fame. So that's a closed book. That's the done deal. And now she's concentrating in MMA. But now we see, Heather Hardy, Ava Knight, etc., Serrano, who are currently still boxing and also doing MMA. So that's interesting. Also, I don't know how the contracts work there because I know a lot of contracts are very specific that there can't be pretty much like an overlap. And, if you are a world champion, such as Amanda Serrano, if you're 7 division world champion, in boxing you only really fight 2, maybe 3 times a year, so that you do stay, fresh and that you do get the preparation you need. But if you're also in MMA, that's obviously a different animal. So you have to be, studying and training for that too. So I don't know. Heather and Anna met in Bellator in 2018, but Anna's performance was so disappointing, especially after everything she said leading into the fight. Anna, we're talking about Anna Knight. Yeah, she was really confident, and she's been really confident. So I was also very surprised. And Heather, just my respect, she's just a warrior. Kenya Enriquez actually trained once with Holly Holm and has trained some MMA with the boyfriend. Yes, actually, Kenya Enriquez was going to debut in Combates America. She had been training, she had been signed supposedly, but word on the street is that while she was training, she got injured and she decided, you know what, I'm already an intern world champion and for the WBC, I'm gonna take this route. And I don't think she's gonna debut anymore. I might be wrong. And of course, we have Conor McGregor, infamous Conor McGregor. This is the man that I was talking about, as we all know, famous for MMA, emblematic. And when he fought Mayweather, this is, you know, what I was talking about as well. Like, he looked jumpy. I don't know how to explain it. He looked like he wanted to grapple at some moments. I think he did grapple Mayweather at some moments. He wasn't so, you know, quick to be in and out, because I think they're so used to, you know, going in and trying to take him to the ground or trying to do some kind of holds, or I don't know. My respects as an MMA fighter, but as a boxer, it's a whole nother animal. And that's why I'm so amazed by these talented fighters, both male and female, who make this transition and who make it look so easy and who actually juggle both at the same time. Even more incredible to me, because to me, it's two different animals. I mean, you could be an amazing boxer, but, you know, as we said, okay, you know, maybe Abanite's an amazing boxer. She got on the ground, they did a submission. Maybe she's not used to that. I'm sure she's not used to that. You know, even in her amazing career, she's used to just getting hit, not getting held. So that's really interesting to me. What else? We can't forget, well, she doesn't compete in MMA. Your teammate Jessica McCaskill proved how a natural fighter she is when she shadowboxed inside the MMA cage and easily adapted to the surroundings at My Body Complex. Yes, that's right. Actually, we trained a few times. We were doing strength and conditioning over there at My Body Complex, and they do have an octagon there, and Jessica did get in the ring. And a lot of people, you know, commented on the video that our manager Rick Ramos put up, saying, you know, is Jessica looking to get into MMA? You know, I can surely put her in. And of course, Jessica is also a natural fighter, a natural athlete, super strong. She learns incredibly fast. I'm sure if she did want to go that route, she definitely could, and she could be a world champion in MMA as well, be it UFC, Bellator, Combate Americas, anything. Throw anything at that woman. She's incredible. I call her Superwoman. So that would actually be really interesting. Right now, of course, she's unified champion. She's looking to fight to see. She's got big plans. So that's what I'm saying. I don't know how it works with these boxers who are doing MMA at the same time, because it's a challenge. And of course, it's different kind of injuries that you can encounter, even in training. As we know, when you're training boxing, you know, you can get injured. Now imagine training MMA and then you have a world title fight pending, you know, in 4 or 5 months. I don't know if you could recover from that. So that's really interesting to me. And of course, speaking of possible other ones, Claressa Shields, for example, has said that she wants to transition into MMA. She, you know, she was a super middleweight champion, middleweight champion, now super welterweight champion, and she says that MMA is her next stop, although she doesn't want to stop competing boxing. We've seen her in 2019. We saw her training. We saw her grappling. She put some videos up of her training for MMA, for grappling, for that sort of thing. She said it was a different animal, that it was difficult, but she was really interested and she really wanted to go through with it. We're still going, you know, that's still pending. We'll still see if that's going to come true or not. Another fighter who wants to make this transition is, of course, Christine Custino from Brazil, also known as Cyborg. She has expressed that she wants to box. She has been shown to be obviously friends with boxers, but also to be at the boxing events. So her interest definitely there. Cecilia Breaker says, sure, come on, I'll fight you. And she's looking at various other possibilities. I know against Claressa Shields as well. Anywhere in that division, welter to middleweight, where she's fighting at the UFC. So that would be interesting too. Cyborg has a long trajectory and is also very active in MMA, is a champion in MMA. So let's see how it would be to do her transition. I think it would be interesting for her to do that transition. And so we'll wait for more comments of these fighters who have done MMA to boxing or vice versa. And in the meantime, we'll move on to the news, because there's been so much news now that we've seen a few countries opening up. We've seen a few countries partially opening up. And so, the thought on everybody's mind is, when is boxing coming back? So we have a few good news for all you boxing fans. Eddie Hearn plans to reactivate boxing in the UK with private events in the Matchroom premises, which will include world title fights in an impressive show, he said, with fireworks, live TV, all through the zone. And as a preventive measure, he plans on not only testing the fighters, but also, very interesting, isolating them in hotels nearby. He has expressed this as a preventive measurement. So this is interesting because although he does say that he has world title fights pending, and we all know that he does, a lot of them are international world title fights. So as of now, I believe there aren't international flights available. So I don't know if you would need a special permit, or for the time being he would only have, UK fighters fighting against each other, or what would happen, because we have this Katie Taylor-Amanda Serrano fight. I don't think the US is able to travel to the UK yet. And as well, we have Cecilia Brækhus with Jessica McCaskill. Again, the same problem. So I'm not sure how that's going to proceed. He's going to have to see what to do with that. As far as Wilder and Fury. So, as we all know, Wilder said that he'd step aside to let Fury do unification bout against Anthony Joshua. We all know that Eddie Hearn has expressed that that's the fight that everybody wants to see, this unification for all the belts. But while Fury said that he wouldn't pay to let that happen, that he'd rather beat Wilder and then go on and fight Anthony Joshua. Very confident, a very frontal Fury as we know him. So in the meantime, Wilder said he would solicit advice from Foreman prior to his trilogy. So Foreman reportedly called Wilder after his loss, offering him comfort and advice, having been in his shoes with this fight where he was the favorite and lost against a returning Ali. So he said that he'd love to have some advice from him in his next fight for his trilogy. And Bob Arum said, yes, I agree. I think it will be very good for Wilder to receive advice, and maybe even some training or some techniques or some pointers from Foreman. So we'll see if he's included in his camp. As of yet, he's not officially included, but there's a friendship there stemming, definitely. And Bob Arum said that, so we all know, originally it was set for July 18th. That was in the contract stipulated. It got pushed to October 3rd due to the coronavirus, and I'm thinking October 3rd is a valid date. But it's so unpredictable that Bob Arum has said that he actually expects it to be later, either November, December, or even 2021. So for anybody who wants to see this trilogy, who's expecting it to be this year, don't count on it. Robert Cartagena, yes, I did mention Erin Toughill. She was the first one, and I explained my admiration towards her. So yeah, you missed out, buddy. You're going to have to see the replay. What else? So Rafael Marquez, brother of Juan Manuel Marquez, of course, this fighter who fought 4 times and finally defeated Manny Pacquiao, is part of the Marquez dynasty, which brought about great fights and many world titles. So Rafael Marquez announced that his son Israel will be the one to carry out his legacy. So that's really interesting. For one, Israel is the trilogy that marked Rafael Marquez. Israel Vasquez was the trilogy that marked Rafael Marquez boxing history. He decided to name his son Israel, and now Israel has decided that he wants to be a boxer. So that's really interesting. Destiny, I don't know, call it what you want. So none of Juan Manuel's children decided to take the path of boxing, but his son Israel, now 18 and trained by Rafael, is set to debut in about a year. So we haven't seen really any footage of his amateur fighting, but I'm sure he's well trained and has a great corner in Rafael. So I'm excited to continue seeing these these dynasties, this time the Marquez dynasty. Let's see what they bring to the table. And in other news, Lomanchenko versus Lopez seems to be a done deal, according to Bob Arum, for the unification bout. So everyone's been waiting for this bout for the lightweight division. It was official before it became not official after the COVID. But now he says that the fight is set for September in New York at an event behind closed doors, just to be sure. So we'll be looking towards that fight. And it's really interesting because Bob Arum at the beginning said that he wouldn't have this fight behind closed doors because it was the kind of fight that he would want the public to be at. But I think it's a great fight nonetheless, and I'm pretty sure that the boxers, that's the least of their concerns, whether there's a public or not. I'm pretty sure they want to have all the belts. So this is going to be a really interesting fight. Let's see. Discovered that former boxer Elena Reed competed in MMA and actually earned a first-round TKO win over UFC star Michelle Watterson in April 2009 before Michelle signed with UFC. Wow, that's really interesting. So, yeah, and it's also really interesting to me. I don't know if it's because of the guard or if it's because of the moves, the agility moves, like you know that it's coming. So, you know, we as boxers learn to do a lot of counterattacking. I don't know if that has to do with the success rate, actually. I feel like as long as you stay standing, the success rate of a boxer to MMA is very strong, either by a kick or by a punch, because we're able to kind of like maneuver, move, and then counterattack when the other person isn't expecting it, or when they're expecting, I don't know, something else. I think that's what happened with Holm, that she moved and she came back with the kick, and then, you know, she went after her. I've also seen some boxers that transition to the MMA, you know, with the right hand or with the hook, because I don't know, for whatever reason. And I don't see that same transition, that same agility transitioning to boxing. For example, if you're MMA and you're a wrestler, or you're I don't know, so from some other discipline, and you move to boxing, I feel like they have a harder time being successful in boxing. So if someone can give me an opinion, I think that's interesting. Let's see, what other news. So Mike Tyson's return is really interesting. Now I think everybody wants a piece of it. So Holyfield had said that he is training, and we had seen that for a couple months now. And we've seen him, you know, physically strong at 57 years old. And he said that he's ready for the Tyson fight. He said it's a done deal. And actually somebody made a really nice poster saying that it was going to take place in July in Saudi Arabia. And it was circling and everybody was excited. But I know that's not real. It's just like a fantasy fight. So we're still waiting on a pending date. But what's more interesting is that currently this week, I believe it was either today or yesterday, Shannon Briggs declared on social media that his fight with with Mike Tyson is a done deal. So we're gonna have to see who he's fighting. What we do know is that Mike Tyson is definitely fighting. What we don't know is who's gonna be the opponent. And in case he chooses one or the other, if they keep if all these, you know, former heavyweights keep surging and keep saying that they're boxing and that they're ready, maybe there'll be more than this exhibition fight. You know, maybe Mike Tyson will pick one, and whoever doesn't fight with Mike Tyson, they'll, you know, come up with another charity event. So I think it's really interesting for me, as I've mentioned, with the right precautions. And I think, let's not say, you know, 8 rounds even. I mean, if we do, you know, an Olympic style 3 or 4 rounds with headgear, with all the protection, we have to take into consideration age 100%, and also the trajectory. Yes, they could be incredible, but it's not the same thing, trust me. So I'm all for having them fight. Former heavyweight named Butterbean, but he also briefly did MMA after boxing. Yes, I do know Butterbean. Actually, in one of our shows, when we said who would you like to see Mike Tyson fight, a lot of them said Butterbean. I believe, wasn't he also in wrestling, WWE Butterbean? I think he was. There's also been a few who have made the wrestling transition. Well, obviously Ronda Rousey, which we talked about briefly. And it's no easy feat. Even though everyone knows that it's fake, it's not easy. You still have to train for it. You still get hit, you still get bruised, you still have to do strength training, agility training, you have to know the moves. So yes, it is a spectacle, but trust me, you also have to train hard. So, and last in our news, we have Top Rank returns to professional boxing on June 26th in Las Vegas at a closed-door event where El Venado will face El Pitufo in another Puerto Rico-Mexico rivalry, which will surely be entertaining. I don't know the complete undercard. If somebody has that undercard, can somebody send it to me? What I do know is that they have been inquiring over Mexican boxers to be fighting at that closed-door event in Las Vegas in June. What I don't know is how that's going to happen, because currently, if you have a tourist visa, you cannot go to the U.S. And that they don't know when they're going to lift it. Supposedly, it was supposed to be lifted May 20th. That looks like it's not going to happen. And then they said June 1st, and now they're looking at mid-June. So unless, you know, you live in Mexico, but you are of American nationality, or I don't know if you have a worker's visa, maybe you can go, or a P visa for professionals if you can go and fight. But under a tourist visa, from what I know, you cannot travel to the U.S. So, as I mentioned, I think that's going to be one of the most difficult parts of coming back with these, events, even if they're closed door, in June and July, because a lot of traveling isn't allowed, and boxing has become international. All the boxing big fights are of an international character. So we're going to have to see what happens. And going back to Butterbean, they said, yes, he appeared on WWF WrestleMania 15 in what was called a Brawl for All against an overmatched Bart Gunn. I don't know much about WWF, but I'm sure it was an entertaining fight. Butterbean was also known to be an entertaining boxer, you know, and just below the ring and above the ring. So, well, if there's no more comments, that was our show. Thank you to everyone who contributed. As I mentioned, big ups to all these incredible fighters, both female and male, who make the transition to one or the other, or who are currently doing both, even more so. I admire you and applaud you completely. So I am Alejandra La Phoenix Ayala. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you Friday for our Spanish show. Thank you to everyone in Tijuana, Mexico City, Chicago, Canada, and the rest of the world. Bye-bye.